Diddy is in some hot water. But before I get to that story, I do have to first say that I know I'm super late on getting this video out. However, in my defense, I did want to wait a little bit to gather some more information on the topic before releasing the video. But before we get to Diddy, there is just another huge booming story that I just have to simply tell you guys about. So if you were like me and you had a pretty good childhood, the first thing that you would do is when you get home from school is rush over to your TV and turn on your favorite Nickelodeon show. Now me, I love Nickelodeon. I literally watch every single one of their shows, from Drake and Josh, iCarly, Zoe 101, and you can go on and on. There are some dark secrets regarding the Nickelodeon stars that they had to deal with for years that none of us ever knew about. That was until the documentary Quiet on Set was released, interviewing former stars. Now, if you guys have not had a chance to go and watch this documentary yet, I would highly recommend doing so, especially if you love Nickelodeon shows growing up. There's a lot of crazy, sad details in this documentary that I was blown away by, that, you know, part of my childhood is watching these stars, these shows, and, you know, unbeknownst to me, that they were actually struggling and going through a lot of stuff that we never knew about. We just loved the show and we never had a chance to hear them and hear their side of the story until now. So the main topic behind this documentary is the former producer, Dan Schneiders. And if you don't know who he is, he was basically the top executive producer at Nickelodeon for the longest time ever, producing some of the network's top shows. And they talk about him doing not so good stuff. One of the main stars was Jenna McCurdy, who was on the show iCarly and Sam and Cat. She reveals in her memoir, "I'm Glad My Mom Died," that she had a terrible time on the shows. Hollywood was very, very bad to her. Nickelodeon even offered her $300,000 in hush money, which she declined, and basically told everything in her book and let it be known that she was very unhappy how she was treated, how the producers were acting, how the network was being, and it just wasn't a good time for her. And how her mom forced her to act and relied on her for money, and there's a lot that goes into it. And now moving on to Zoe 101. I love this show, one of the best shows till this day. And it's pretty sad that the show came to an abrupt ending when Jamie Lynn Spears got pregnant at such a young age. And it's still unknown who the father is. There's a lot of rumors out there that it was like a producer, some type of director with the network. No one really knows for sure. She also had a boyfriend at the time who was over 18 when she was under 18. So there's definitely a lot of conspiracies surrounding that. And some of her co-hosts gave their thoughts on the show as well.
I would say the biggest reason that I sat down was for my kids. The entertainment industry is not the only industry that punishes people for coming forward about a toxic work environment. And the wardrobe for me was always very different than Jamie's. Mine was always like short skirts and like fitted tops, even like off the shoulder.
How about this top? You like this top? It makes me look chesty.
Now moving on to probably my favorite show ever growing up. Could be your favorite show too, who knows? Drake and Josh. Now, Drake Bell has been in a lot of controversies in the last couple of years, but when he sat down to be interviewed on this documentary, it was revealed that he was actually sexually assaulted by his former acting coach, and he actually covered it up and didn't tell anyone for a long time. And I'm sure that affected him throughout his childhood. I'm sure that affected him throughout his acting career. That was very sad to hear, but the biggest one of all was definitely Amanda Bynes. If you don't know, Amanda Bynes was on the Amanda Show, and then she acted in some movies after that. But lately, in the last few years, she has not looked the best mentally. And I think that Dan Schneiders and Nickelodeon has probably a lot to do with that. It was revealed that a Twitter account going by the name of Persian LA 27 was actually posting a lot of information about Amanda Bynes. Now, a lot of people speculate that this was Amanda having a fake account just to expose some stuff going on behind the scenes. But basically, this account knew a lot of details about her, about the show, about the situations at the time. And it basically said that she was impregnated by somebody at some point when she was very young. It was her boss, producer. They didn't name any names, but a lot of people do speculate it was Dan Schneiders, since he was always so close to her and the rest of the cast. that most likely was him. I think some of that bad treatment definitely has led her to how she is today. And even back in 2013, her family put her under a conservatorship, which they basically controlled everything she did and said, but luckily that ended in 2022. Now, it's sad to see that all of these former Nickelodeon stars have came out and talked about their tough times on the shows with the network, but it's no surprise that stuff was going on behind the scenes, because over the years there has definitely been a ton of allegations against Dan Schneider and the network, and nothing was really ever done. It was kind of, hush hush, we'll take care of it, we'll look into it, but nothing really was ever done up until 2018 when Dan Schneider was officially fired from the network after such a long tenure of the company. And since his documentary came out exposing Dan Schneider and the Nickelodeon network, Dan decided to go on the Bagel Guys podcast, if you want to call it that. The dude from iCarly is always working the bagel shop, if you know what I'm talking about. Here's a picture. But basically he went on his podcast saying how shocked he was that people came out with these allegations, that he didn't know such thing. He felt very, very sad and sorry for what he did and didn't do. And yeah, take a look for yourself.
Let's talk about the massages.
Okay.
Watching the content yesterday, it was disturbing.
It was wrong. It was wrong that I ever put anybody in that position. It was the wrong thing to do. I'd never do it today. I'm embarrassed that I did it then. I apologize to anybody that I ever put in that situation.
Now, recently, Dan has filed a lawsuit claiming defamation against the creators of the documentary, so I guess we'll see how that goes. Now, on to our final story. It is P Diddy Sean Combs, and is not looking good for the music mogul. He has actually fled the country with charges of sexual assault and sex trafficking. Back in March, the feds raided his homes in LA and Miami, but he already left town, probably got tipped off by somebody, who knows, but he was out of there. Now, it's still unknown exactly where P Diddy is. However, someone was tracking his flight and came up with a pretty good estimation. Now, at first, his plane was flying north towards Puerto Rico, but then it somehow just vanished and disappeared somewhere around the Caribbean in Antigua or Barbuda. Now, since these allegations dropped, the world has been spinning ever since. Former artists, former friends, former girlfriends, everyone's coming out and speaking on the situation, and there is a lot more to the story than we first knew about. Now, it still is unclear how deep this all goes, but there's a lot of videos out there, a lot of people speaking out about his parties. There was one incident where he adopted some girl back in 2020. Take a look for yourself.
Introduce yourself.
My name's Ava. I'm a Scorpio.
No. What's your last name?
Oh, Ava Combs.
What's your other last name?
Ava Baroni.
Eva Baroni Combs. Yes, it was breaking news. Diddy adopted a white child. I want you to tell them the story about how I adopted you. But you still have beautiful parents but you're my child also. But please tell the story.
So, I was on the streets, and then Papa Combs decided that he would like to be a caring man. So then he saw me and decided to pick me up.
Pretty creepy, right? And to me, this is a pretty big case. Like, I almost want to put this up there with like Jeffrey Epstein or R. Kelly, because someone on P Diddy's level who was huge, like very, very rich, very, very famous, has a lot of powerful friends, he probably knows a lot of people. So I mean, who really knows how far this whole situation goes, who's connected, who's done what? It's still pretty early in the case, and they're just trying to gather as much information and evidence as possible, and they'll put it together eventually. But it's pretty crazy to see that someone on his level was doing this, or I don't know. There's a lot of evidence. I don't want to say he did or didn't do it, but there's definitely a lot of evidence against him. A lot of people are speaking out. We'll definitely have to wait and see what happens next. But it's not looking good, and the fact that he kind of fled the country is not looking too good either. And his representatives did come out and say that he wants to stay and fight the charges, prove his innocence, but he has yet to do so, and no one's quite sure where he is at this moment. Well, that is going to wrap up this video. I hope you guys did enjoy it. Please drop a big thumbs up, share, and subscribe down below if you did. Also, drop a quick comment. What do you think of the P Diddy situation and Dan Schneider and Nickelodeon? Let me know. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.